In one corner of Bangladesh, farmers are starting to talk about war. Not a war between countries, not a war over borders, a war over water. In the Barind region of northwestern Bangladesh, villagers now watch wells run dry beneath their feet. Some pump water and nothing comes out. Others dig deeper every year, only to discover that the groundwater keeps retreating. For decades, this region was transformed by technology. Deep tube wells turned one of Bangladesh's driest landscapes into a productive agricultural powerhouse. Rice, wheat, maize, vegetables, and lentils flourished where drought once dominated. But today, that success story is beginning to unravel. More than 82% of the region is already under serious water stress. Researchers warn that groundwater depletion could reach critical levels within the next 2 decades. Farmers who once worried about floods now worry about something far more frightening: the complete disappearance of the water beneath their land. And what makes this crisis so dangerous is that it is not unique to Bangladesh. From India to Iran, from Mexico to California, communities across the world are discovering the same uncomfortable truth. Modern agriculture depends on groundwater, but groundwater is running out faster than nature can replace it. The story of Barind is not just about Bangladesh. It is a warning about the future of food, climate, and human survival in the 21st century. To understand why this crisis matters, we need to understand what happened in Barind. Stretching across parts of Rajshahi, Naugaon, Natore, and Chapainawabganj districts, the Barind Tract has always been one of Bangladesh's most difficult farming regions. Unlike the lush, river-fed landscapes many people associate with Bangladesh, Barind sits on elevated plains covered by dense red clay soil. Rainfall is lower than in much of the country. Temperatures are higher. Water evaporates quickly. Historically, drought shaped life here. Then came a technological revolution. Beginning in the 1980s, the state-run Barind Multipurpose Development Authority installed approximately 18,000 deep tube wells across the region. Suddenly, groundwater became available on an unprecedented scale. Farmers expanded cultivation dramatically. Multiple harvests became possible each year. Agricultural production surged. Rural incomes improved. Entire communities became dependent on irrigated farming. But every success carried a hidden cost. The system depended almost entirely on pumping water from underground aquifers. Year after year, millions of liters were extracted to grow crops, particularly Boro rice, a water-intensive winter rice variety that became central to Bangladesh's food security strategy. For decades, the model appeared sustainable. Then, climate change arrived. Rainfall became more erratic. Temperatures increased. Recharge rates declined. And eventually, the math stopped working. Today, groundwater extraction exceeds replenishment across much of the region. What once looked like an agricultural miracle increasingly resembles a slow-moving ecological collapse. The first major revelation is that this crisis was not created by climate change alone. Climate change accelerated the problem, but decades of over-extraction laid the foundation. Every year, farmers pumped more water because economic incentives rewarded production. Governments encouraged higher crop yields to ensure food security. Water-intensive rice cultivation expanded across areas never naturally suited for such farming. The result was a classic resource trap. The more successful agriculture became, the more dependent communities became on groundwater. Farmers like Ator Rahman understand the contradiction better than anyone. They know continued extraction threatens the future, yet they also know that without irrigation, their crops fail immediately. Without irrigation, we cannot cultivate, and without cultivation, we cannot survive, he explains. That statement captures the entire dilemma. Policymakers often talk about reducing groundwater use. But for many farmers, reducing water use means reducing income, reducing food production, and risking poverty. Last year, the government attempted to confront this challenge by banning groundwater extraction for irrigation across nearly 5,000 villages classified as water-stressed zones. The decision shocked many communities. Farmers had already invested in seeds, fertilizer, and land preparation. Suddenly, the water sustaining those investments became unavailable. The government later suspended the restrictions for 2 years, but the episode exposed a larger reality. Governments can ban pumping. They cannot ban dependence. And unless alternatives emerge quickly, every restriction risks creating economic hardship. Yet groundwater depletion is only one part of the story. The deeper threat lies in how water scarcity is transforming entire communities. The second major revelation is that water scarcity is becoming a social and economic crisis long before it becomes an environmental one. Rising irrigation costs now squeeze farmers from every direction. According to local farmers, irrigation that once cost around 90 taka per hour now costs approximately 120 taka. Fertilizer prices have increased, labor costs have increased, yet crop yields are declining. Farmers pay more to produce less. This creates a vicious cycle of debt and vulnerability. Younger generations increasingly see no future in agriculture. Across Barind, many young men have already migrated to Dhaka and other cities in search of work. Families that spent generations farming now encourage their children to pursue completely different careers. Women often bear the heaviest burden. Farmers like Srimoti Shabdurani begin work before sunrise and continue until late evening. They manage crops, livestock, household responsibilities, and childcare simultaneously. As water becomes scarcer, their workload grows heavier. Meanwhile, social tensions are beginning to emerge around access to water itself. In many areas, farmers purchase irrigation through prepaid cards connected to deep tube wells. But declining groundwater pressure means they receive less water even after paying higher prices. This creates frustration and competition. When resources become scarce, trust often becomes scarce as well. That is why some residents now openly fear conflict. 27-year-old farmer Mohammed Asif worries that by the time his son reaches adulthood, the struggle for water could become severe enough to trigger violence. His fear may sound dramatic, but history suggests otherwise. Many of the world's most serious conflicts already involve water stress, resource competition, and environmental decline. Water scarcity rarely causes wars by itself, but it intensifies every existing social, economic, and political tension. And that is precisely what makes the situation in Barind so dangerous. The third and most important revelation is that solutions still exist, but the window for action is closing rapidly. Researchers estimate that more than 2.5 million hectares of farmland could eventually remain uncultivated if groundwater depletion continues unchecked. That could reduce crop production by approximately 2.7 million tons, threatening food security and rural livelihoods across Bangladesh. Yet, experts argue that the answer does not lie solely underground. It lies above ground as well. Rainwater harvesting, wetland restoration, pond rehabilitation, and climate-smart agriculture offer potential pathways forward. Development organizations such as BRAC have already begun training thousands of farmers in water-efficient farming techniques. One promising method, known as alternate wetting and drying, allows rice fields to periodically dry instead of remaining permanently flooded. Studies show it can significantly reduce water consumption without harming yields. Farmers are also experimenting with less water-intensive crops. Community-based water management systems are emerging in some areas. Government officials increasingly recognize the need for alternative irrigation infrastructure. But scaling these solutions requires investment, coordination, and political commitment. Climate adaptation is often discussed as a future challenge. In Barind, it is already a present necessity. The broader implications extend far beyond Bangladesh. Across South Asia, groundwater supports hundreds of millions of people. India extracts more groundwater than any country in the world. Pakistan faces severe water stress. Large parts of China rely on increasingly depleted aquifers. What happens in Barind today may happen elsewhere tomorrow. This is why the crisis deserves global attention. The challenge facing Bangladesh is no longer simply how to conserve groundwater. It is how to conserve groundwater while preserving the communities whose survival depends on it. Because when water disappears, people do not simply lose a resource. They lose livelihoods, stability, opportunity, and sometimes even hope. And if the world waits until the wells run dry everywhere, it may discover that rebuilding aquifers is far harder than rebuilding economies.